Stratford District Council's Planning Committee on the 22nd of October 2025. My name's Neil Eden. I will be your chair this evening. A bit of housekeeping to start with. There are no fire alarms planned this evening, so if the alarms do go off, the fire exit is down to the bottom of the room and the muster point is behind the pub. So if you could all wait there and be ticked off accordingly. Just a reminder about mobile phones. Could they all be switched off or set to silent at least, please, so as not to disturb the flow of the meeting. This is a meeting in public, not a public meeting, so only those registered to speak will be able to do so. It is also being recorded and live streamed on our YouTube channel. So I'll start with an introduction for the rest of the top table. To my right is Ciara Keller from Democratic Services. Sue Mullins is our legal officer this evening. Our planning manager is David Jeffrey, and our presenting officer this evening is Stuart McIver. David, I believe you have a statement to make.
I do, thank you, Chair. My name is David Jeffrey. I'm the planning manager for tonight's meeting. My role is to provide impartial advice, to clarify any planning issues that arise and to assist members' decision-taking. Planning committee members are not bound by advice from officers or by their recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. Okay, so into the agenda proper. Any apologies for absence?
We've apologies from Councillors Adam, Hencher-Seraphin, Keithley and Padgham.
Thank you very much. And members, any disclosures of interest, please? Councillor Scorer.
Thank you, Chair. For application 25-00671 full, a non-registrable interest, I know the applicant. And I come with a clear and open mind, Chair. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor. Any others? Councillor Parry.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair. It's really a ditto from Councillor Scorer as well. I have met the applicant on previous occasions, but have not had any discussions in respect to this application, so come to the committee with an open mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parry. Anybody else? No? Okay, perfect. I'm going to change the order around slightly. As you will see, members will have seen from the update sheet, there's been a change of recommendation from officers for item 4, which is 2501689/Vary, land adjacent to Bonnyton in Wolverton. Due to some issues with the report that was issued, officers are recommending that we defer this to a later committee. I would like to propose that, but will obviously seek any other members' opinions or a seconder. Councillor Fleming.
I'll second your proposal.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Anybody else have anything to mention on that? No? Then we'll take that one to the vote. All those in favour of deferring?
Unanimous.
Thank you very much, Ciara. So, committee resolves to defer to a later committee, 2501689/Vary, land adjacent to Bonnyton in Wolverton. Thank you. Okay, so on to our next application, which is 2500671/FUL, Winchcombe Farm, Shennington Road in Upper Tysoe. Stuart, I'd imagine your presentation is more than ready, so take it away when you are.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Good evening, everyone. So the proposal before members is a full application for a change of use of 2 buildings from residential or holiday let usage to 2 residential dwellings. No changes to internal, external layout or appearance at Winchcombe Farm, Upper Tysoe. So you can see the application site denoted by the black dot, situated east of the village of Upper Tysoe. And then we go into the proposed site plan. So, just showing, so red line out, outlined in red is the application site. Then we go into the existing and proposed site plan. So you can see the 2 buildings proposed for the change of use. Here and here. sorry, and then we go on to the existing and proposed floor plans. And then we just go into some site photos from the site. So you've got the map and arrow to the right-hand side, which shows where the image is taken from. So we're looking towards the building called the Chicken Shed Lodge, which is this building here. And then we've got another image just from the other direction again. So this is the Chicken Shed Lodge. And then we've got a final image. So this is the building that is known as Bob's Lodge, situated here. In summary, it's considered that the application for a change of use of 2 buildings from residential holiday let usage to 2 residential dwellings is acceptable as it complies with the relevant policies of the NDP and core strategy. It is therefore recommended that the application is granted. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Okay, so we've got some speakers here this evening. So I'd like to invite forward Councillor Roach and Venables from Tysoe Parish Council, if they're present, if you'd like to come forward. Good evening. Thank you very much. I believe, Councillor Venables, you're just here to answer questions, so you won't be speaking. You're just here to help. Okay, perfect. So, Councillor Roach, when you're ready, if you press the button to your right, the microphone will go red, and then you'll have 3 minutes to inform committee. So, whenever you're ready, thank you.
The main plank of the officer's argument, his rationale for recommending that permission be granted, is that while SDC's core strategy would prohibit it, Tysoe's neighbourhood plan supports it. In stating this, he is seeing a fundamental divergence between the core strategy and our NDP, that neither his colleagues in planning policy, whose job it is to look at these things, nor the independent examiner who examined our plan could see. The divergence that the officer is suggesting is of such magnitude that, if real, would potentially allow every chicken shed, pigsty, cow byre and outhouse in the parish, not built of brick or stone, to be converted to a house, no matter how remote from the village and how inappropriate. Patently, that was not the intention of the parish council, nor was it the intention of SDC, who reviewed it. The officer suggests that our housing policy number 1 fails to comply with the core strategy. The independent examiner describes this policy as sitting at the heart of the plan. Is it likely, therefore, that this policy, which the examiner believes is so fundamental to the plan, could diverge in so significant a way without the examiner pointing this out? It's not the job of the neighbourhood plan to reiterate slices of the core strategy. Tysoe's neighbourhood plan was therefore considered compliant with SDC's core strategy in every way and in every policy contained within it. The argument put forward by the applicant that the financial viability of the buildings as holiday lets no longer exists has not convinced the officer, and it did not convince the parish council. They are therefore not redundant buildings. This alone should be sufficient to refuse permission, even if the application was otherwise compliant, which we don't believe is the case. Further, and of significant importance, the application fails to comply with the NPPF, paragraphs 83 and 84, which concern rural housing. The fact that the NPPF is a material consideration for this application is not mentioned by the officer, nor the fact that the NPPF, amended in February of this year, is the most recent guideline that is relevant. The application fails to comply with
30 seconds left, sir. 30 seconds.
The application fails to comply with the NPPF because the houses are not located where they'll enhance or maintain the vitality of rural communications. They will be isolated homes in the countryside, they're not heritage assets, and the buildings are not redundant. The appeal case in Broome, cited by the officer, bears very little resemblance to this application. It's not in a village and is not a sustainable location.
If I could ask you to wrap up, you've had your 3 minutes, thank you.
case for granting permission therefore relies solely on a tenuous interpretation of our neighbourhood plan, which neither the planning policy officers nor the independent examiner would recognise. We believe that this application should therefore be refused on the basis that it comprehensively fails to comply with all relevant guidelines.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Members, does anyone have any questions for the Parish Council? Councillor Parry, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Councillor Roach. I wonder whether the parish can advise when the last local housing needs survey was undertaken, and if you have any, what is the current status of the housing need, i.e. what sort of properties are you short of?
From memory, and maybe Amanda will correct me, I think we did a housing needs survey in 2021, which was virtually at the same date that the neighbourhood plan was made. And at the time it identified an affordable housing need for 8 affordable homes of various sizes, 2 and 3 bedrooms mainly. And that is the last the last housing survey we did.
Thank you. Any other members have any questions for the Parish Council? No? Looking around the room. Okay, well, thank you very much, councillors, for your time and input. I'll call forward now the applicant. Where am I? Steve Taylor, please. Good evening, Mr. Taylor. It's not a problem, make yourself comfortable. Mr. Taylor, the same is for you. 3 minutes. Take it away when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. I've made myself available to answer any questions that the committee may have regarding, well, anything really, the marketing of the site and any points that the Parish Council have raised. Obviously, the officer report is both detailed and comprehensive and demonstrates that the application is policy compliant. It is even more compliant given that, as the officer points out, there is a considerable shortage in housing across the district. And this application will provide 2 additional dwellings to go towards that 5-year housing supply without actually having to do anything at all because they're already built. One is a Sleeps 8 holiday let and has been in quasi-residential use for 8 years. And the other one is a Sleep 7 holiday let, which is also in quasi-residential use and has been for about the same length of time. No changes to elevations or setting are proposed, and it's interesting to note that on this occasion the Campaign for the Protection of Rural England have also supported the application. So I put it to you that there is no reason whatsoever to deviate from the officer's report. It makes complete sense, but obviously if anybody's got any questions, I'm quite happy to answer them.
Well within your time there. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Members, does anyone have any questions? No? No. Well, no questions for you. Okay, but thank you very much for your input, Mr. Taylor. Calling forward our final speaker for the evening, Councillor Littlewood. Good evening, Councillor. You very much know the drill, I know. 5 minutes, I believe. Yes, so I'll give you a 30-second warning if you need it. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good evening, councillors. The application the site of this application is remote from the village, approximately a kilometre away from the centre of the village, and I consider that to be unsustainable. Local authority plans are formed within the context of the NPPF, and similarly the NDP are framed to be in accordance with the local plan, in this case the core strategy, and therefore also in accord with the NPPF. The process of producing the NDP is clearly established, with the draft NDPs checked by officers and independent examiners to ensure no conflict with and compliance with the core strategy. NDPs are not intended to be a verbatim copy of the core strategy, but to be framed within the local plan policies to highlight local wishes of residents and shape the future development of town and parish, whilst maintaining the character and features of the settlement in line with the wishes of residents democratically by referendum. The Tyso NDP went through this rigorous process and was released to consultation and referendum without any intention that there was any conflict with the core strategy, and reliant on officers and independent examiners to ensure that this was the case, assumed in the final acceptance by SDC as a made plan. Any conflicts would have been raised at that time. It's clear that the intention of the Parish Council was to be in full compliance with the core strategy. In this case, the officers argued that Tyso NDP is up to date. Following the Borden Hill appeal decisions, the core strategy cannot be considered to be up to date. The proposed conversion of the buildings to a residential use is not in accordance with the requirements of core strategy AS10D, and that there is little evidence provided of non-viability of the buildings contrary to the same policy. The buildings are constructed of timber and not brick or stone, also stipulated in AS10D. The officer gives precedent to the Tyso NDP in this argument because the words constructed of brick or stone are missing from the Tyso NDP Housing Strategy 1. Because of the inadvertent missing words, the NDP Policy 1, the office considers that the proposed development is not in conflict with the policy and compliant with the NDP, regardless of the clear intention at drafting and review that this was not to be the case. The officer states that there is insufficient evidence of non-viability of the two timber buildings as holiday lets. I note that this business is still operating and advertising itself, and I would agree with his conclusions. A change of purpose of the two timber buildings from holiday lets to permanent dwellings conflicts with CS22 paragraph 9 and NDP Employment Policy 1. The officer indicated that based on core strategy alone, this application would be refused, but the core strategy assumed to be out of date. According to the government guidance determining a planning application, the current NPPF must be taken as a matter of as material consideration, and as such the NPPF paragraph 84 applies. In this case, paragraph 84C of the NPPF would only allow permission to be granted if the development would reuse redundant or disused buildings and enhance its immediate setting. The officer has shown that non-viability has not been proven, and therefore the buildings are not redundant, and therefore the proposed change of use is in conflict with the NPPF and with the Tyso Neighbourhood Development Plan Policy, Employment Policy 1. And consequently, on balance, the correct decision is to refuse this application, and I urge the committee to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Littlewood. Well within your time, if I can stop the time, that is. Members, do we have any questions for Councillor Littlewood? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Littlewood. I had reason to go and have a look at the Tyso NDP because it's clearly important in this particular case. On what I read on Appendix 2, Village Design Statement, in reference to materials in which buildings should be built, it deliberately specifies one-edged timber cladding. Is that your understanding as well?
That is quite correct, but the necessary point of the argument here is that the area strategy 10D clearly defines the reuse of rural buildings that are of a construction of brick or stone, and it is those missing words from the NDP which has given rise to this argument. If I can add for clarity, yeah, the materials used refer to stone and brick buildings within the BOAB or within the area of the NDP refers to traditional use. Thank you. With traditional use, they have cladding as well as, but they're constructed mainly of brick and stone.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Harvey?
It provokes me to ask another question of the officer in due course.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Is it a matter of...
Sorry, Chair, I was hesitating because I was being passed a piece of information and I couldn't quite read what it was saying. Where it says in the building materials, is wherever possible, local ironstone should be used in the construction of new dwellings or other structures, outbuilding, abutments or garages not built using natural stone should be constructed using new or reclaimed handmade facing bricks, red or orange in colour, or large feather or waney edge timber cladding. That's to be clear.
Thank you, Councillor Littlewood. Councillor Scorer.
Did you say new dwelling?
Sorry, I did.
Okay, thank you.
Any other members have any questions for Councillor Littlewood? No? No? Then thank you very much for your contribution this evening, Councillor. So members, points of clarification with the officer then. Does anybody have any? Councillor Harvey.
I've got two areas for sorting out, so to speak. Councillor Roach made reference to sections 83 and 84 of the NPPF. I'm afraid I don't carry that in my head, section 83 and 84, and I wonder if the officer could remind us what the content is and what the importance of sections 83 and 84 are.
Yes, happy to. The NPPF is a material consideration. Paragraph 83 of the NPPF is one of a number of paragraphs under the headings rural housing. It says to promote sustainable development in rural areas, housing should be located where it will enhance and maintain the vitality of rural communities. Planning policies should identify opportunities for villages to grow and thrive, especially where this will support local services. Where there are groups or smaller settlements, development in one village may support services in a village nearby. Paragraph 84 is relevant to the development of isolated homes in the countryside, and it says planning policies should avoid the development of isolated homes in the countryside unless one or more of the following apply. There is an essential need for a rural worker. I'll pray see these. The development would represent the optimal viable use of a heritage asset. The development would reuse redundant or disused buildings and enhance its immediate setting. The development would involve the subdivision of an existing residential building, or the design is exceptional.
So the helpful thing would be if, thank you for that, if the officer could tell us whether he believes that this application complies or doesn't comply with sections 83 and 84 of the NPPF.
My view would be that paragraph 84 is of some limited relevance because it principally relates to isolated homes, and I don't think this would result in isolated homes because there are other buildings in and around it in this area. It would reuse a building. It is a matter of contention whether it's redundant or disused in its current state, and it is a matter for consideration whether it would enhance its immediate setting as set out in our report.
Thank you. Second question.
Of course, Councillor.
Timber cladding versus brick. I'd be grateful if you could clarify the position. Timber cladding is mentioned in Appendix 2 of the NDDP. I'm now somewhat less certain about whether I understand the relevance of the core strategy given the Borden Hill decision. So where are we required to place weight on the value of the timber cladding in the NDDP appendix or in the core strategy?
Yeah, this is somewhat complicated because of the Borden Hill inquiry and the impact that it's had on the way we have to weigh different aspects of the development plan. What's obvious through our report, I hope, is that because we don't have a 5-year housing land supply, our core strategy policies are no longer able to be afforded full weight. AS10 of our core strategy includes a provision which allows for the conversion of buildings in the countryside if they are brick built and of architectural merit. So the materials used in the construction of an existing building are relevant to that policy. Unlike the core strategy, the NDP is in a slightly better position because it is newer and it is it does allocate housing within it, so it is not out of date. So for the purposes of decision making, the NDP is the starting point for decision making. In its policy, it does not refer to materials being relevant to the conversion of buildings in rural areas. It says rural buildings are capable of being converted. So in that sense, there is a clear difference between the core strategy policy and the NDP policy in our view. They are not in conflict in the extent that it would raise an issue at examination as you were progressing an NDP, but there is a clear difference. Our report sets out how we say that difference should be resolved, and it's clear in law that that difference should be resolved in favour of the NDP, and the NDP policy sets out that this scheme would be acceptable in principle regardless of what materials it's made of.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Scorer.
Thank you, Chair. No, mine was the same question as Trevor's second question. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Chair. Just some clarification. Obviously, the 2 units at the moment are used for holiday let business or positioned with that with the planning permission, which, if I'm right in thinking, enables someone to go and stay there for a maximum of 30 days. They can't stay for any longer. They'd have to go away and then rebook it. So it's only for a limited period of time. So I'd therefore be interested to know the weight we should be giving to it was confirmed by the parish council that they carried a housing needs survey circa 4 years ago, identifying a need for affordable homes. If the committee was minded to grant this application this evening, this would then enable those 2 units to be rented out on a residential basis, because if I'm right in thinking, it would have planning permission for residential use. So that, and I'm interested to hear the weight we would then give to the housing needs survey that advised that they were short of some affordable accommodation for the parish, and would therefore these 2 units satisfy or respond to the shortage in the housing need on the basis of their size and that they could be rented, or alternatively, I suppose, being if they were granted residential, there could be an application come forward for replacement dwelling for new dwellings.
Tricky. The housing needs survey is somewhat dated, 2021. It did set out that there is a requirement for a housing association rent property, one bed masonette. It did set out that there was a requirement for a housing association shared ownership property of 1 2-bedroom house. It also set out a requirement for owner-occupier properties, which would have been 3 two-bed bungalows and 3 two-bed houses. I'm not sure what provision there has been within the parish since the publication of the Housing Needs Survey, so I don't know what elements of that may have been catered for already. Certainly, as it currently stands, with a restriction placed upon it that these properties can only be used for holiday accommodation, they don't make a contribution towards the district's housing needs because they can't be permanently occupied. In that sense, if members were permitting this, they would make a contribution in a way that they currently can't do. They would count towards the council's 5-year housing land supply, and that is a significant material consideration in their favour.
Any more points for clarification? Oh, Councillor Harvey again.
Can I refer to page 6 in the officer's report? The first full paragraph, which quotes from the neighbourhood development plan. It lists a number of circumstances in which new housing would be okay, strictly controlled but limited. Is it the argument of the officer that what is proposed here amounts to the conversion of rural buildings within that context?
Yes, short answer.
I like short answers.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any points of clarification? No? Okay then, so we'll move on to the debate on this item. Who'd like to start? Going to have to start picking on people. No? Yeah, Councillor Parry, thank you.
Well, if nobody else wants to sort of come forward, I think this is a very interesting scenario. However, I think we're going to find my fellow committee members are going to be in a fairly similar situation on a number of forthcoming committee meetings where, following the result of the Borden Hill appeal, we're going to have to make difficult decisions that, had this application perhaps come forward 2 or 3 months ago, the report might have been written in a very different way. Therefore, on that basis, I don't feel that with the challenges that we have ahead, we are needing to bring forward and increase the number of residential dwellings. I also actually am, if it hasn't worked as a holiday let and could potentially provide residential accommodation on a rental basis, I know as a district we have a great shortage of private rental accommodation, and therefore that also ticks a housing need. However, having developed and been an instrumental part of developing a neighbourhood development plan, I can sympathise with the parish because I can understand how frustrating it is to spend 2 or 3 years perhaps developing a neighbourhood development plan to be short of a few words that can perhaps overturn a decision. But on this basis and on what I have in front of me, I'm going to propose that we grant in accordance with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Parry. Councillor Scorer.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Anne. From the Kyneton parish, we had a similar, well, not similar, but we had chicken sheds outside of the, in the open countryside, and it's very frustrating. However, I agree with Councillor Parry, with, the Boreham Hill appeal, looking at these are oven ready, they're ready to go, and they could add to our housing supply. So I'd like to second that, please, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Does anyone else have anything to... Yeah, Councillor Fleming, thank you.
We all know the correspondence we've had from planning and strategic planning about how we should approach planning permissions. And I know it kind of leans heavily on bigger schemes, i.e. more than 20 houses and whatever, but every house counts, and it may well take pressure off somewhere else that's more marginal than this. This is a marginal one, but it may well take some pressure off some that are even more marginal. So I'll agree to consider and go with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Fleming. Anyone else? No? Okay, well, I'll make a quick comment on this as well. I absolutely sympathise as somebody who's currently involved in my area's NDP and has been for an awfully long time. I think Councillor Littlewood did touch upon a point in terms of an NDP not rewriting the core strategy verbatim. I entirely sympathise with that because they're designed to work in harmony with the core strategy, but that rug has effectively been pulled from beneath your feet. So that's hard, and I entirely sympathise with that. However, the five-year housing land supply issue is doing that, and it's going to do that to a lot of NDPs that were made to work in harmony with the core strategy versus any that may come knowing this decision. And as Councillor Parry said, if this had been heard 3 months ago, the report would be very different, and probably the recommendation. That being said, I have a proposer, I have a seconder to go with the officer's recommendations. So I'm going to take it to the vote now, unless anyone else has anything final to say. No? Okay, so can I take a vote on going with the officer's recommendation on 25000671 FUL, and the recommendation is to grant, please.
That's unanimous.
Okay, so committee resolves to grant 25000671 FUL, Witchcombe Farms, Shennington Road, Upper Tyso, and that concludes our applications for this evening. So, he says, finding his thing. Okay, so that leads us just to any urgent business, Keir. No urgent business. Well, thank you all very much for your input and your contributions this evening. I declare the meeting closed.